The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, America. Good morning, world. Good morning, CHD. Welcome. Once again, my name is Michael Kane. I am the Director of Advocacy here at Children's Health Defense. I have an announcement about something we're doing on Wednesday, but coming up here today, stay tuned for the People Study with Elise Puglisi telling her story of mold toxicity. Then following that is my colleague, Stephanie Lucretia in Advocacy with an EMR and wireless update. She interviews Lisette Manzon, who had a small cell tower built just 10 feet from her backyard. So stay tuned for that. Before those come on, we want to announce this Wednesday, CHD is having our inaugural Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Senators Ron Johnson, Senator Rand Paul, Surgeon General Latipo, and Rob Schneider as MC, and a little levity and fun. This is going to be happening in the daytime and the evening time. The daytime has no more seats. It is completely filled up. So you can't come to that. But in the evening, we are going to be viewing Duty to Disobey, where Senator Ron Johnson will be convening a roundtable panel discussing the movie about warriors of conscience who refused to take the COVID shot, the abuses that they were put through, and we'll have many warriors of conscience there as well too. If you can't make it there, CHD TV will be live streaming the daytime portion, which again, we have no more seats for, but in the evening, you can still register for the evening at CHDadvocacy.org. Go to CHDadvocacy.org. You can register still. We do have seats for the evening Duty to Disobey. Okay, fantastic. And with that, we're going to go into the People Study.
Hello, everyone. Well, I'm delighted to be with Alice today. Alice Puglisi. Did I say that right?
Elise Puglisi, but it's okay.
Elise? Oh, Elise Puglisi. Okay, so I said the whole thing wrong. But look, Elise, talk us to, this is a very important story, and thank you for coming on to do this. Can you take us back and walk us through the symptoms and absolutely everything breakdown, because people need to hear this.
Okay, so I have 4 children. Now, this started not long ago, where I started seeing symptoms happen with my oldest son, which is my second child. A lot of irritability, holding his ears. Sometimes he would scream and say things were too loud. He'll have eczema. He had psoriasis. He had extra yeast coming out of his head. And I just never pointed, because at first I thought, okay, well, maybe it was his vaccine injury when he was a little kid. Now we're talking about years later. And so then I was like coughing it up as sensory processing disorder. We got him some therapy, and then it just never got better. And then it became progressive, like OCD, where he wouldn't want to go take a shower. He wouldn't wipe his own bottom after a bowel movement. And I just, again, coughed it up for quite some time, that it was sensory processing disorder. Then I started seeing symptoms with my daughter having trichotillomania, eye pulling eyelashes. I had that too growing up. I assumed that it was normal, and it wasn't. It was considered an obsessive compulsive, which when you have an environmental issue, it could be brought out into that OCD. Now, I'm going to get into the talking about. I ended up having my son Levi, and this story is mostly about him. And I had no clue regarding environmental at all. And he ended up, when he was born, normal, neurotypical child. He wouldn't speak as well. And then I thought, hey, maybe my son literally was, sorry, that's very touching. I thought maybe, my oldest kids were speaking for him, being the third child, didn't know. Then I started seeing him doing like this and like stimming. And we had a natural home birth, everything natural.
So no vaccines? No vaccines?
No. Very organic, baby-led weaning, anything you could think of, completely organic. And then when I nursed him until he was 2.5, and all of a sudden I got pregnant with my fourth, and things got bad. And all of a sudden I dried up. He started developing autistic-like symptoms, and it just got worse, where he ended up getting misdiagnosed for a year with aphid. And I knew this was probably aphid. Just being in healthcare, it just seemed, it seemed like aphid. Got coughed up for about a waste of a year of OT. And he ended up saying everything in threes: Godzilla, Godzilla, Godzilla. And then he would have vocal tics. Still to this day, he has vocal tics, and he'll say inappropriate words because he can't regulate. So his pediatrician told me, basically, let's go get him tested for autism, just to slap a label. It might help you. You might have some more services for him, and you could figure it out along your journey of what approach you want to take. My doctor was very open-minded, very accepting, and I started deep diving. And then I brought him to therapy, still no progression at all. And then randomly, I had my fourth child. And I didn't gain any weight with that fourth child. I gained 17 pounds. And within 24 hours, I lost 17 pounds after I had him. And then within a whole month, I lost 35 pounds. And then within 3 months, I kept losing weight up to 56 pounds. I ended up having pain in my joints. I thought magnesium deficiency cramping that everybody assumes they have in their legs. And it was chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is CIRS, which is basically mold illness. Went through the natural field, functional medicine doctors, and we tested for urine in my son and myself, and I had Stachybotrys in my body, Aspergillus. And one day I was nursing my fourth child in the middle of the night, and I literally said, please help me. And I came across a reel, and it said fibromyalgia, headaches, respiratory issues, pain, leg pain, irritability. And then I saw things about children like rage, screaming, ADHD-like symptoms, autism, like all these weird things. And I'm like, kind of cough it up, whatever. Anything's possible. And it says, you have mold illness. And the first thing in my head, as I thought of my third child when we were diagnosed with autism level 2, excessive and receptive speech delay. And I knew something wasn't right, because when I did the parent assessment, it says, does your child line things up? No. Does he have social problems? No. Does he speak? Not really. No. And then we got the assessment. It says parents who test under the assessment tend to be in denial of a diagnosis. And I'm like, no, I answered your questions. This just doesn't fit him. Well, we ended up finding out that he had Aspergillus niger, Aspergillus, different types of Aspergillus in his body. And then that night when I saw that reel of a guy talking about mold illness, and I typed in autism and mold, just autism and mold, and then tons of NIH things came up with this study from Dr. Baker. It was a small study that said that the 6-year-old boy who was autistic had high levels of Aspergillus and got put on antifungals, and he had a complete turnaround within a certain amount of months. So then we ended up moving from South Carolina back to our home state in the Northeast. And we started already going through the process of a little bit of detoxing, having less stuff, less dust, less spore transferring, and within 3 months, my son started speaking. Within a year, he started having conversations with me and saying, I love you, Mom. And you could see from the video I share where, he started going blah, 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 and then all of a sudden it goes A, B, C. With it all in a year and a half, he knew all his colors, his ABCs. It was just a complete change because, I was slapped with the label of autism. Not to say that he doesn't have autism, but it aggravated, or he had a complete turnaround. And I think that in our journey, that he had so many other issues going on that the mainstream medical people never even did anything about. He was actually diagnosed by a functional medicine medical doctor with autoimmune encephalitis. mast cell activation, cerebral folate deficiency, nutritional deficiencies, malabsorption issues, all because he was in a situation that we were not aware of. Once we moved from South Carolina, I actually lost my speech, my expressatory speech. If someone asked me like what happened, I would be like, I'll start the conversation, and then I sounded like a stroke victim by the time I was done with the conversation. Either that was traumatic experience or it was an inflammation state. But all of us end up having all these issues. Either my son, my third child, Levi, actually showed more symptoms, but he was the most healing fast I have ever seen, and I knew there was an environmental point at that amount. And then my daughter stopped pulling her eyelashes out. She stopped saying, "Mommy, I don't have Dory brain anymore." And, it was just such a good thing to see that it causes hormonal issues and all this other things I had no clue about at all. And now I'm here back in Connecticut and I'm fighting legislation to have better remediation standards because across the nation, there is no help. And I feel that we really need to make some change. And I want my son's story to come to light because you really should need to deep dive before just taking the label and running with it. And it's not saying that everybody is having this issue, but if you don't peel the orange slowly and being able to get through each thing, you won't ever know unless you look into it. But
No,
that's basically my
thank
story.
you. Thank you for telling that story. I've got some questions. So, first of all, how do you tell if you've got mold in your house? Because it's sometimes not obvious, right?
No, it's not. Just like where we came from in South Carolina, it definitely wasn't. HVAC system, everybody's like, "Oh, is that dust?" When a lot of people say, "Yeah, that's dust on your HVAC vent." No, probably not. But crack bubbly paint around the windows. We couldn't open the windows. I was renting. They were stuck. We couldn't open them. Bubbly tile in front of the washer machine, the dishwasher. I didn't know anything about that. They had centipedes, like basement centipedes, like kind of like all over the place. It was eye opening, but there's different things. And because of these new build homes are having multi-million-dollar lawsuits and all of these things, I can't obviously list any of them right now, but you could see certain things. You may not see mold. You could smell mold. Some molds you can't at all. I didn't. I walked in there looking at the rental and I was like, oh, I saw that the vent was facing a different direction, but I kind of didn't put two and two together. And then when I turned off the lights, someone told me to turn on my flashlight on my phone and put it on an angle and take a look. And I did. And it was all shimmery, but I would have never known until I turned off the lights to see that the AC system was literally pushing cold air, slamming it against the drywall. And we had no access to the attic because we were renting. I couldn't even see if there was issues in the attic above it.
And so it's fascinating to me. So you've got an unvaccinated child said no vaccines, no vitamin K, nothing, gets a diagnosis of autism. And this is a very important story, everyone, because nobody has ever said the vaccines are the only cause of autism.
And I thought so in the beginning. I thought so. Like probably a lot of us holistic medical freedom people in the beginning probably thought that vaccines cause autism, but it's not. It's lumped into an environmental.
Because autism, the kind of autism my son has, is brain injury. And so there's lots of things that can cause brain injury, vaccines being the number one cause. But now we're starting to hear more and more about mold. That's why I'm so excited that you're here to tell this story. I'm horrified for your children and you and everything you've been through. Absolutely awful. But this is so important because I speak to the military members and they talk about mold in all their military based houses and stuff, and their children with issues as well. So that's why I'm so excited you're talking to us about this. So again, really, I just want to try and figure out what can people do if they're starting to see some signs in their children, that unvaccinated kids that are behaving like Levi was.
The best thing that I think I did was have less stuff, less dust. So if you have like a bookshelf and you don't really need the books, get rid of some things that have porous stuff that, dust all the time, having good air purifiers. You want to have good exchange coming into your home. It's very hard when you're renting because you can't really control a lot of that. And I really do believe that having less things in your home, like less cluttering and all of that, you'll have better air quality in your home to kind of get you through. And having a good functional medicine doctor, or any physician that understands mold toxicity or mold. It's really good too to kind of focus on what your genomics are. It's not just MTHFR out there that we have to be worried about in our type of community. It's HLA-DR gene. It's the cerebral folate deficiency gene. It's to find out, does your child, can it really just detox on binders? Probably not like my child. You might need a little bit more L-glutathione and like all these other things. You need to meet those needs of different types of supplements and can your child produce enough vitamin D by itself? There's a lot that goes to it, but you really have to do your research on finding the correct provider because even on the western side of the community, it's just the same on the eastern side of the community. If you don't have the right functional medicine, you're not going to get anywhere.
So talk about purifiers, humidifiers, things like that. What are we supposed to be putting in our houses if we think we have mold?
Well, the way I look at it is that if you know you're going to stay in your home, then maybe you want to have the best of the best air purifiers. I don't want to give too many brands because I don't want to associate with some of these brands, but I did buy the best of the best if I can, and make sure you're up on changing your filters. And again, just dusting your home and doing what you can to support the body itself because what you're breathing is going right into your blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, so basically is so Levi's born, he's perfectly healthy, he starts having these symptoms. So he's breathing in these like dust particles.
Mhm.
And
Think of it as an elevator right up to your brain.
it affected him more than the others.
Yep.
I wonder why him more than the others.
I think it's more of the pathways in your genomic,
Right.
because I have one child, my daughter, she doesn't have cerebral folate deficiency, but she also was diagnosed with mast cell activation. So if a lot of people just go down the mast cell activation in our autistic community or any other neurodivergent, you might be able to find how sometimes that might contribute.
And how do you test for mold? So if a mother's listening and thinking, because we had another mother come on talk about mold rage.
Oh yeah, I know that very well. Yeah, so the testing, from what I've done some research with, like, I watch a little bit about Dr. Jill Krista and like all the other bigger functional medicine doctors and mold toxicity. She also mentioned something along the lines of doing the microtoxin for blood and urine and using it as a tool as a whole, because what you filter out during the urine may not be exactly what's floating in your blood.
And you recommend going to a functional health practitioner type person?
Yes, I ended up going to a medical doctor who does autoimmune encephalitis and understands mold toxicity. And I also have dealt with naturopathic doctors as well. And my pediatrician's completely on board.
Now, if you're looking for a new house, what are the things that you should be looking for?
Well, I would actually save your money to actually hire the best type of inspector that, is certified in many different certifications like normie testing or normie certifications and IICRCs and all the big stuff, because out there in these states, they don't have to be certified to run a business. And you should probably really know, as a parent, do some research because you might end up having to be the backbone.
And tell me how Levi's doing today.
He's talking. He doesn't need an AAC device. Um, it's so wonderful. He's actually learning to read right now. And that's what you see in the video of him doing hopscotch and learning his alphabet. And we do have a long journey still, and we still don't know his future. However, if I had him retested, he probably wouldn't fit the autism level 2 category, including our speech therapist was like, "Are you sure he was diagnosed as nonverbal?" And I'm like, yeah. He's like, "This looks like aphasia," So I'm kind of glad that I got somewhere and I kept fighting for him. And I really hope that people just don't just take a label. Just look into things, see if you can meet their needs. If nutritional and if he had vector-borne illnesses like my kid had Babesia, Ehrlichia, and all these other things. We're all considered immune compromised, and whatever we had dormanted came out because our environment was affecting our immune system.
And finally, for those out there that say, well, my house got a bit of mold, but hasn't all houses? How dangerous is mold?
Well, not everybody gets sick, but a lot of the times that people actually, when they say that, I just feel like it's cognitive dissonance. And it's very common in the mold community to see at least one partner to say, well, I feel fine. And then the doctor's saying, well, she's not. So everybody's body is all different. And I think that's just a poor attitude and it's very stagnant.
Elise, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and doing this. It's such an important story. Is there anything else that our viewers need to know about mold?
No, I just think that just do your research and peel the orange, peel the onion back slowly. And, things that might be making your symptoms of your child or yourself worse, don't just accept magnesium deficiency being an issue or chronic and viral infections back to back. You got to look deeper. Don't sit stagnant. Keep fighting for everybody and yourself.
And I actually know a mother whose 2-year-old started having seizures, unvaccinated, totally unvaccinated, everyone. And they ripped the floors up and it was thick black mold in the house. So
Yeah,
it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's completely dangerous and it's completely shadowed and it needs to be awakened like a lion in the country because it's that bad.
Is there an organization that people can follow?
Yeah, I actually work a little bit on the side as just a volunteer for our legislation with Change the Air Foundation. That's definitely had passed military base for mold remediation too across the nation, and I highly recommend them. And there is a large I think it's called Mold and Home. On Facebook group. It's a big, large, about 52,000 people, and there's very knowledgeable professionals in there.
I'm still banned on Facebook, so I can't be joining that, but never mind. Elise, thank you so much. And I'm so happy for you that Levi is turning a corner and getting there. And you're a great mom. And thank you for sounding the alarm for so many. So important. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
Hi, it's Stephanie Lucrecio here with your EMR and wireless update. So many of you know your home is more than just your address. It's your safe place, your community, and for most families, the single largest investment that you will make. Yet across the country, wireless infrastructure is rapidly expanding into residential neighborhoods, often with little transparency, limited local input, and no meaningful public awareness. Today, we begin a conversation about what is quietly changing the landscape right outside of our front doors. Cell towers and antennas are being placed near homes, schools, playgrounds, and parks, raising urgent questions about neighborhood livability, property values, aesthetics, and quality of life. This month's 704 No More campaign, What's Near Your Home Matters, challenges us to look more closely at what is being built in our communities and to ask whether residents truly have a voice in the decisions shaping where they live. I'm so excited to bring on Lisette Manzon, a Miami-Dade native, homeschooling mother of 2, former high school language arts teacher, and a small business owner who lives this issue firsthand after discovering a 5G cell installation just feet from her family's garden. I'm so happy to have you here this morning, Lisette. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. The work that you're doing is so important. And sadly, through others' experiences, so many people learn about how hard it is to get these towers uninstalled once they're there. So talk to me about, at what point did you become aware that a 5G tower was going to be installed close to your house?
So this all began in Miami-Dade in residential neighborhoods in 2024, actually, where they were originally digging up and placing fiber. So everybody in our community thought this was wonderful because we have underground utilities. And then suddenly on April 1st, I came home to a very ambiguous door hanger stating that there are improvements in the neighborhood, and the installation date didn't say what it was, and it was completely blank. And then April 2nd, I came home to a 32-foot concrete pole hugging my fence line where they had to chop down my privacy hedges to even install it.
I'm horrified looking at this picture. That is
horrifying.
So a door hanger was their notification to you?
The door
basically.
hanger, basically, and a blank door hanger, very generic door hanger. Yep.
So, what was your reaction? Because this pole is literally feet from your family garden.
Well, the neighbors started calling and asking, Lisette, what are you working on? And I said, I have no idea. I don't know what this is. And then I thought back to that door hanger and I was like, So I went back to the desk, grabbed it, saw a number to call to Crown Castle, who installed this pole. And when I started making calls, I was directed to the 5G small cell department, and some of the workers from Crown Castle called back and let me know that that is in fact a 5G small cell tower.
That is insane. So it's being built. You get a door hanger, you call. Did they advise you on what like the recourse was if this is not something that you wanted to have happen? Clearly it's not something that you want, but did they advise you what the recourse was at that point?
At that point, it was simply these are improvements in the neighborhood. This has been permitted by the county. This has been the state law allows for us to construct on the right of ways, and there's not really anything you can do about it. It's been fully permitted.
So you've raised concerns about the discrepancies between the engineering plans and the FCC radio frequency compliance report submitted by Crown Castle. Can you walk us through what you discovered and why it raised so many red flags for you?
Absolutely. So from the moment it landed, I started figuring out what it was. And then I went to work checking the permits, pulling public records for the engineering plans. And then through a lot of advisement as well, I was told to pull the radio frequency compliance report. Now, that was not provided to me through public records, nor did Crown Castle provide it to me. I had to go all the way to the FCC and ask them to provide that report to me. They said, yes, we can. In good faith, that should have already been provided to you, but it was not. So when the radio frequency compliance report came in, it was this completely generic report, not specific to this tower, and the fact that there are two macro towers across the lake, possibly like 500 feet away. Very generic plan. And what I started noticing looking at both of them is that what Crown Castle submitted to the FCC states that these antennas have no down tilt, that they are they're on the horizon, the 0 degree. However, in the engineering plans, it's very specific and it states a 15-degree down tilt. So what they're constructing doesn't match the safety report submitted, or the safety report doesn't match the construction. I'm not sure which one is correct and which one is incorrect, but I do know that they do not match. So that's concerning to me, because if they are being built with a 15-degree down tilt, but they were submitted with a 0-degree down tilt, how am I supposed to trust the safety of this tower next to my children's bedrooms?
Can you explain for those that are listening that may not understand what the down tilt represents and why it's important, what that means?
So the antennas that they place on the pole, they attach them. And so if it's 0 degrees, it would literally just be transmitting to the horizon, right? But it's constructed and approved at 15 degrees. So that beam could possibly be shooting much closer to where my children play, where we garden. Like I said, we homeschool and we're out there. We were out there all the time. That has changed in the last year. So I'm just not sure how it's truly being transmitted, and if it's landing closer to our heads or if it's off into the horizon.
Have you gotten any clear answers from the company about those discrepancies?
Crown Castle no longer communicates with me. I submitted a complaint with the FCC, but I am happy to say that I was able to finally secure a meeting with the permitting department here in my county. And I presented this information to them. You know, they technically never really pulled up the safety report because they really don't have to. So when I showed this to them, I said, well, I've pulled it up because I'm a mother and I'm concerned, and I'm showing you these discrepancies. And so I am happy to say finally this month, somebody's listening. Somebody's listening in my county permitting department. So.
And how have your state and local representatives been? Have you had discussed your concerns with them at all?
Oh, very much so. When it first started, the local board of commissioners, they did submit a resolution to the state urging them to please amend the law so that they could have more local control. But really not much else has come from them. And in these past 2 years, since this has been so abundant in Florida, we've actually formed the Florida Coalition with Lauren Moans in St. Pete and members throughout Orlando, Tampa, all the way up to the Panhandle. And St. Pete was able to locally get their wireless ordinance updated at the local level. So we're taking that and presenting that also this month and saying, look, there is something you can do. Your hands are not completely tied. Please put in more protection, update our local wireless ordinance so this stops happening.
So this is happening rapidly across the country. Like, we're seeing towers pop up all over the place. Do you feel like the system in general is working as intended to support situations like this for residents, specifically to support you in your fight against the rapid proliferation of wireless technology, i.e. towers popping up right in front of your garden? Or do you feel like it's this constant battle where you have to claw your way into people's faces and try to be heard?
Constant battle. Oftentimes, a lot of our government officials, elected officials, have no idea what's going on. And our Florida state law, from what I've researched, is one of the worst, possibly even written by telecom themselves. And my understanding as well is that the federal level, they're trying to strip even more local control from all of us. So this is a national problem, 100%, and the people are not being supported.
Yeah, we've been hearing that, and we definitely know, working here at CHD and with our 704 No More Coalition, that you're not alone. I mean, there are so many people that are being impacted by this, and the recourse once the tower is there is impossible almost. But the sad part is that many residents don't know that it's happening until construction begins. So what do you suggest for people having lived through this? How can people prevent themselves from being where you are right now? What steps can you take to make sure that there's not a tower permit being passed in your area as we speak?
Exactly. I mean, until April 2024, I had no idea this was even possible. Why would anybody put a cell tower inches from your property line? Our county has put up like a website that lets you know what is being applied for. I just don't think that it has been advertised enough, let's say. So many people just still don't know. We have done community meetings here in Kendall, Miami-Dade, educating people, letting them know this is possible. But we just, as a group, because I also work with the 704 No More, we just have to continue raising awareness with opportunities like this, because truly, if you would have told me 2 years ago a cell tower would just pop up, I would have thought, that's impossible.
I think most people are in that boat until it actually happens to you. You don't really feel the realm of possibility. So talk about the impacts, not only on your property value, the aesthetics of your garden. Have you noticed any health impacts? Give us the rundown of everything that's happened since this tower has been installed.
Well, property value, our property appraiser here in Miami-Dade, Tomas Regalado, has stated that it could possibly drop 10 to 15% with a tower next to your home. It only recently started transmitting according to the county, because I would always check in and say, has it been turned on? Why is it glowing a green light at night? So it did start transmitting, I would say, just in February. As far as medical concerns, I'd still like to keep those personal, because my children, I do keep track, and I will just say this, I keep records of any headaches or nausea or, disruptions. I feel like the long term, you do hear about cancers and different things, but the short term, the immediate effects, I think it truly affects like just sleep and wellness, well-being in general. So I will say that.
For sure. And I think it's great that you're
Dizziness.
keeping track of everything that's going on, because there's a lot of people that don't even recognize that the symptoms that they're suffering with are related to this voluntary and involuntary exposure to wireless radiation, both from your phones, from towers, and just from the exposure from everybody else's devices. It's all around us. It's invisible, so you don't know it's there, but it is
Correct.
having an impact on us for sure.
That list you just pulled up, I would say that absolutely, it's very real. They're just such small things that you think, oh, it's just daily life. But no, it's actually because you're being hit by pulsed radiation 24 hours a day now. So, yes.
What changes have you had to make to your daily life now that that tower is on? I mean, I know you mentioned homeschooling and being outside. What has been the impact on your day-to-day schedule and lifestyle?
Yep, there's been some changes. I could show you a before and after of the garden bed. I'm no longer using that garden. It's gone to weeds. I don't want to be underneath that tower for 30 minutes, planting seeds and gardening. I try to keep the kids on the other side when they play now. We used to sit and read, but we've changed our positioning on that. And then I'm also having to mitigate with, I'm looking at some curtains that could block our windows, because all of our bedroom windows are on that side of the house too. So it's an investment. I have to start putting money into this. There's so many products out there. I'm just looking to make sure I get the right one, but I have to mitigate it inside, and I've lost half of my yard, which is why we bought the house. It has a beautiful long, and I have fruit trees over there, but again, I don't frequent that side anymore.
I don't blame you. What have you had to tell your children about the changes that have happened? What do they understand about this tower?
Well, they understand that their mom is fighting this tower. They've seen me go to government meetings. They've seen me do interviews. And, sometimes even kids are like, well, that can't be, and of course, as a mom, you don't want to put fear into your children, right? Like, oh, this can make you sick. But it's just raising awareness with them. Like, well, there's possibilities that it could be. So it's better that we take precautions and we are very self-aware of how we're feeling. And, I try to let them continue just living their days without building anxiety or fear around it. But they are very, very much aware that this is a huge cause for me.
You are definitely a hero in years to come when they look back. I know my son, when I was fighting for things back in the day when he was in middle school, he didn't understand. And watching them grow up and come back to you and say, thanks, Mom, for doing that is one of those moments that's priceless. So I guarantee you're definitely on that path from the way it sounds. And what you're doing not only benefits your children, but everybody else's. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. One last thing I want to ask you. What would you like to see change in terms of transparency, notification of community consent moving forward?
Well, I guess I would say any neighborhood that is about to have a cell tower installed should be given proper notification to voice their opinion on it. I mean, honestly, some people do think it's beneficial. It's like some people do. So you do have two points of views in this world. right? Oh, I'm going to have better streaming, is what some people think. But others, like us, feel differently. So that should be allowed to be heard with due time, not after it's been permitted. That's
Absolutely.
what I would
More than a door knocker, essentially. Like, give us more than a door knocker.
Oh yeah, a day, less than 24 hours before installation too.
That
So
is
they knew that was being permitted, probably the process for over a year. So there was plenty of time to let us know.
Well, the truth is they don't want you to know, because the more time you have, the more time there is for you to protest and make your voice heard how you do not want this tower. So I would say that the telecom companies are very well aware that many people are resisting this deployment. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
less attention, the better.
Absolutely. Agree.
In the midst of all of this, in the midst of all of the industry corruption and the fact that things are happening in the background with little or no consent, what gives you hope as we move forward, battling giants, literally, like arm in arm together, trying to bring attention to the injustices when it comes to towers?
Oh, what gives me hope is the Children's Health Defense, 704 No More, all of these national committees that are working together, urging the FCC to comply with the 2021 order to review safety standards. The fact that there's been some progress in these areas, that it gives me extreme hope that we can get this under control.
Thank you so much, Lisette. You give me hope. The work that you're doing and everything that you're doing all together, I feel like our voices are loud and they're coming from every corner of this country. So we have to just continue to fight for our children, to fight for transparency, to fight for informed consent, and to make sure that our legislators understand that they are here to serve us, not big industry. So keep up the good fight. Please come back soon and give us updates. And just know if there's anything at all that you need, we are absolutely here to help.
Thank you so much. Thanks for hearing my story. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here to tell it. We'll have you back soon.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank you. So as we close, I want to remind everybody that what is near your home matters, and awareness starts simply with paying attention. This is why we're launching the Find the Cell Tower Scavenger Hunt with the 704 No More campaign. We are asking all of you to walk or drive your neighborhood, identify cell towers and antennas, and take note of how close they are to homes, schools, parks, and playgrounds. Document what you see, share it with your neighbors and community groups and your local leaders. And most importantly, help bring transparency to what is often hidden in plain sight. Post your photos and videos and tag at 704 No More on all major social platforms so others can see what you're finding. Submit your stories and images to Advocacy at childrenshealthdefense.org for a chance to be featured in our community news and views section. Join the movement, 704 No More. Follow, share, educate, and engage. Use our educational resources, flyers, fact sheets to help your community understand what's at stake and to start informed conversations where you live. Because when communities pay attention, they gain a voice, and when they speak together, change is possible. So just remember, everything that you do makes a huge difference, and it's going to take all of us to stop the madness and stop the rapid proliferation of these wireless technologies right outside of our door. So get busy, go looking for towers, send us what you find, and we'll be sure to reach out and share everything that comes our way. Thank you so much for participating, and we'll see you back soon.
He's 14 and our son is 9.
Okay, and I feel like this is an important question. So when you were pregnant with your first child as a couple, could I have called you anti-vaxxers?
No.
Tell us how you were feeling then.
I was concerned at birth with the schedule, with our daughter. And I questioned, but they assured me there was nothing to worry about. So
you trusted your doctors?
Yes.
Yeah. No reason not to?
Right.
Or so you thought. All right, so when you were pregnant, with either of your children, did you have any vaccines?
No.
It's a relief. So when your first child was born, how was that baby? Did you look at your baby and think there's something really wrong with you? How quickly did the baby have the vitamin K and the Hep B?
Right away.
Literally as soon as they're born?
Yeah, as soon as she was born. And she was beautiful, and life, seemed to start off normal. She didn't have the Hep B, though. I wouldn't let them give it to her. Well, no, they gave it to her. But I argued it. I argued it. I said I didn't understand it. So at that point, I didn't understand it.
And they just gave it to her anyway.
Yeah.
And so what symptoms? Because you say that you feel like the Hep B and the vitamin K.
That was where I was going to focus on. I don't know if you want to, with our son.
Sure, no, go ahead.
More like threatening. Our daughter, on a quick note, I guess we can tap into her. She ended up with like an egg reaction, anaphylaxis. And she was about 1.5 years old. And so some doctor pulled us aside and said, do not give her any live vaccines. So I stood up for her not to give her any live vaccines, but she did have reactions to the DTaP. She is ADD. She is general anxiety disorder. And
is she on psychotropic drugs?
No.
That's good.
No. Had a doctor tell us not to.
Wow.
So, doctors in Cleveland. So, then that led us to our son, and he was born full term October 9th, 2007, and beautiful pregnancy. He was a quick delivery. It's just on the exit, his blood contaminated with mine. He was A positive and I was O positive, so I guess that was not a good thing. He had a cord wrapped around his head, so when they put him on me, he was not breathing.
Wait. Let's talk about this blood contamination thing. Talk me through that. Help us understand what you're trying.
I guess when he was.
Did you have Rogaine when you were pregnant?
Did I have a what?
The Rogaine shot.
Not that I know of.
Okay, you don't know.
No.
Okay, so the baby's born and contamination happens.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do about it?
I don't.
They just shared it with us.
Yeah.
I mean,
they told you about it and did nothing about it, so therefore your child survived.
Well, he was.
They said it wasn't
at the time,
good.
he wasn't really breathing, so they took him off to
to the table. They bagged him. He wasn't breathing. So
they said that was because of the contamination or because of something else? Oh, the cord, you said. They said the cord was
also the cord was this way around his head. It was vertical, not strangling him this way. It was just this way around his head.
Okay, so basically they don't know what they were doing.
So they said, that was the cross-contamination is the big thing that I remember. And then they bagged him for 30 seconds, and I was shouting across the room, was he going to be brain damaged?
What does bagged him mean?
They had to resuscitate him with the bag. That's what they called it. Okay. And so they put it over his mouth, and it took him 30 seconds to get him breathing. And then they did what I'm assuming the ointment and the vitamin K. Mm-hmm. At that time, we obviously knew nothing detrimental. And then they handed him to me, and he turned completely blue. And so they whisked him off to NICU. And so the silence in the room afterwards. So that was the beginning. His APGAR scores were good, so our doctor, he went from a 4 at 1 minute to 6 at 5, and he said that was indicative that his brain was not damaged, so that we could look forward to that. They were concerned of jaundice because of the blood mixing. I do have that note. And on the 13th, or on the 4th day of life, he went to the pediatricians outside of the hospital because I wouldn't let him vaccinate him there. And they talked me into giving him the Hep B. And at that point, he started with cold and nasal congestion. He went to coughing, sneezing, gagging, dry heaving, spitting up. He had gas. It was very painful at times. He wouldn't sleep. So this went on for several days, and it was like instant from, 24 hours within that Hep B shot. And we went to the doctors at November 27th. So that was 7 weeks old he was, and they diagnosed him with acid reflux and put him on Zantac. And the Zantac, he began having hysterical
How old
fits.
is he when he was on Zantac?
7 weeks.
Disgraceful.
Did I say 7 months? Might have been 7
Disgraceful.
weeks. Yeah. So the Zantac did nothing. He had 3 hysterical fits in that evening and that day. And we weren't sleeping, and he would never sleep for more than 1 to 4 hours at a time at all. He would have the gas get trapped, and he would cry violently. But during the day, he'd be bright and smiley and cooey. So the days were good, the nights were terrible. In December 7th, 2007, we went to bed. We were excited because everybody was going to sleep before 10 p.m. And he had a co-sleeper attached to our mattress, you know, those beds that are off to the side, so it's easy for breastfeeding and everything. And at 12:42 a.m. on what would be December 8th, I was awoken somehow. I call a guardian angel. And I was very alert suddenly, and I looked at him. I quickly ran to the bathroom and came back, and I decided to nudge him, and he had no movement, and there was no twitching or anything. So I lifted him up, and he hung with no reaction. And I put my hand on him, and I felt nothing, and so I scooped him up and I gave him a kiss, and I said his name, and he did nothing, and he was hanging limp in my hands with no expression. My heart rate went up, and I tilted him upside down as if he were choking, and I hit him a couple times. Sorry. I lifted him up, and there was still nothing, and I shouted to him, no, it's not breathing, he's not breathing. So I put him down on the bed, and I blew into his mouth, and then over his nose and his mouth, and I blew, and there was nothing. And I yelled his name, and I blew again, and there was nothing. And I repeated this, and I believe Noah's chest finally rose, and it slowly frowned and grimaced, and then he did nothing after that. My husband in the panic grabbed him, and I blew again into him one more time before he ran off with him down the hall. And I was calling 911, and he was shouting his name at the top of his lungs and bouncing off the walls. And our hall was, you know, the wall like this size. And finally, while I was telling 911 that our baby wasn't breathing, he crashed into the closet with him, face on. And he screamed and cried out from far away. And it was the best noise at that moment. And then the rescue team came, and they put us in the ambulance, and they said he needed to go to the hospital. So we went to the ER that night. And they definitely believed that after they did EKG, chest x-ray, blood culture, urine culture, apnea, they kept him in the hospital for 3 nights. They switched his medication from Zantac to Prevacid.
Wait, what's Prevacid? What is
It's
that?
another acid reflux medication.
Okay, with a truckload of side effects.
Yeah. So so they switched him because they said obviously the Zantac was doing nothing for him.
Oh, except for stopping him breathing.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we were introduced to our GI doctor at that point for him, and he was a big advocate for him. We had to do CPR before we left the hospital because they told us it would happen again. But the pediatrician on board at that time was not on board with us, said he exhibited no apnea while we were there. So therefore, he wasn't going to sign off on the sleep apnea monitor. But the GI doctor pulled us aside and said he deals with these children, and he said, you want to go home with an apnea monitor, so just sign off on it and bring it home. So we did. We also had a doctor, a student, a resident at the ER. He said he had more than one thing going on, and he recognized that he had condylar compression from traveling through, as he was giving birth.
Canal.
Yeah, and he said that if I knew a DO, to get him to a DO, because he could help osteopath.
Okay.
And that he could, if he knew.
So isn't it interesting how doctors always recommend an osteopath? They will not recommend a chiropractor. Mm-hmm. Shame on you, doctors.
Well, but the osteopath that I fortunately have is from old school, so he does manipulation. So he did cranial sacral therapy on him.
I'm not putting down osteopaths.
yeah.
I just find it interesting how
Right.
medical doctors put down, I wonder who's called the police. Anyway, carry on.
Okay.
Do carry on.
Okay. So interesting enough, over time, we do have the apnea alarm report that he had ALTE. So and apparent life-threatening events is how they diagnosed it. He had 4 apneas on the alarm, 2 bradycardias, and 1 tachycardia. So he would change in color and his muscle tone, I guess, coughing and gagging, and his nervous system disorders and infections. So this went on for days, weeks, months. He would stop breathing. Finally, the doctors, at one point, we had a really bad episode where we had to do mouth to mouth. Even when we were on him, we would take turns. We did 3-hour shifts at night where we'd hold him, shake him, hit him. Our doctor, our DO, he would commend us for continuing to do that. He had to go back into the Children's Hospital in Cleveland, where they did an MRI, an echocardiogram, a pneumogram, and pH probe. He spent 6 nights there, and they all summed it up to acid reflux because it was closing off his airways. So they put him on amoxicillin when he left there, and he started to have he had a febrile seizure. So we had to have an EEG and an EKG, but no epilepsy. So we did a follow-up, or it was around his 4-month appointment. We ended up with a pediatrician who we didn't really care for in the group, I guess. I didn't after this appointment especially. After we had just gotten out of the Children's Hospital in Cleveland, she is insisting that we get caught up to date on our vaccines. And I put my foot down and said, we don't even know what's going on with him and why he's stopping breathing. There's no way I'm going to give him vaccines at this point. And she told us we were risking his life. And she went and got her red book and opened it up for me and told me what the red book said.
What did the red book say?
You know, that he needs his vaccines because that's good for his health. And I said, I don't care what your book says. I'm, as his mom, saying no right now. So at that point, he had been to his GI doctor. They had changed. He has now went from Zantac to, Prevacid. They put him on PES. 15th, 2009. Noah was given 3 vaccines. The Prevnar and hepatitis A. Within 24 to 48 hours, he broke out with a high fever with a rapid breathing of 13 to 14 breaths in short intervals. The nurse recorded it and said, get to the ER immediately. We went to urgent care, and he resumed better behavior. They told us, I gave him Tylenol before we even got the temperature, and he was at 102.5. He was red as a beet, and Noah's arms were turning blue. Even though his temperature then was coming out low, he was still turning colors. And then I guess he developed runny nose and earache and everything within 10 days of that, and so he was going to be put back on amoxicillin, which he had a terrible reaction the first time, and he had 5 to 7 blowouts a day of diarrhea, and we had to take him off of it on the 5th day. I didn't agree with going on it, but she insisted that's what we needed to do, and that was that pediatrician that I didn't see eye to eye that threw me the red book. On the 28th and 29th, he vomited 3 times in the car. He had pain, blood-curdling scream. He was throwing his body down on the ground, rolling and dragging his tummy. The nurse could hear him on the line, and she's like, get him to the ER. I called his GI doctor, and he said if he didn't vomit anymore, to bring him in the following day. So we took him off. He told me to take him off the amoxicillin right away. He was EKGs and EEGs and all that stuff. He had the headgear and everything, and nothing came back. They said he had a toxic buildup in his body, and that he should not have it anymore.
It's better have a good ending, guys.
He's still here.
There's a lot of very stressed people right now listening to this. Please tell me the best ending you can have apart from his health is that you never went back to that bloody pediatrician.
Yeah, I finally had to say, no, I don't want her anymore.
Thank God. Okay, keep going.
Sorry. So I have here, he had a CT scan and it was normal, and EEG. So I kind of skimmed ahead. We went, they had us go to all these specialists. We went to Dr. Lachwani. They told us maybe he had a paranormal sleep disorder.
A paranormal sleep disorder. What does that actually mean? What is that? I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
A white coat telling you he has a paranormal.
And I was like, what?
No, you guys are crazy.
And I just did not think he had that. And he said, well, let's call the cardiologist. The cardiologist is like, he doesn't have a heart problem. And so they were trying to tell us how to make him sleep. And I'm like, this is not the problem at all. So, yeah, what happened with that is they determined he had Z-Pak and Zyrtec. He was still complaining of pain in his throat when he would eat. He still had stomach cramping and spasms over that time, and his medication list at that time was Prevacid, Miralax, I don't know, and Alpro. They go on, the list goes on. And he started having like Strider and Croup. That started being his new thing that he kept having, until finally, and conjunctivitis too was like kept reappearing. Conjunctivitis, which I've seen as a side effect too, like I saw it with the Hep B and everything. So he finally got on vitamin D3 drops, probiotics, vitamin C. He takes Juice Plus. Those are things that were very helpful to him. He did the SRT with Dr. Tenpenny. We stopped vaccinating him.
When was the last time your kids had a vaccine?
Well, Noah was the rabies, and our daughter, 2000.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.